the key point to remember. When you are in a rut, that lets you know that it is time to reroute. And first, we have to recognize we're in a rut. We have to recognize that this is stagnant. We have to recognize that this forward movement that we once had at one point and it was good and it worked and we were doing our thing, like we're done with that. And often we're done with things sooner than we realize, right? There are mindsets that we have that no longer work, that will no longer work for the person that we are becoming. And it's so difficult to recognize that, because then if I don't have that mindset, if I don't participate in those habits or those activities, then who am I? Who am I if I don't do those things? Hey there, it's Nika Smith, and welcome back to the Great Big Life TV, where we talk about all things midlife transition. Today, we're going to be talking about the first phase of the Great Big Life Wheel, which is the transition. Remember, I told you there were 5 phases. There is the transition, there is the edit, there's the exploration, there's the implementation, and then there is the transformation. So we're going to talk about all of those at some point, not in all this video today, but we're going to focus on the first part of this pillar, which is the transition. So before we really get into the transition, I want to describe to you or tell you about a transition that I had. So if you, again, we're all up here, either you're pushing 40, you're in your 40s, pushing 50, in your 50s, but there might have been a time, I don't know about you, but I can just tell you about myself, that I used to be up in the club, okay, up in the people's club, uh, almost every Saturday. I like to dance. That was how you socialized. That's how you met people. That's how met people to date, the whole 9 yards, right? And it wasn't just going to the club, it was the whole ritual behind going to the club, right? So there was first going to the mall to figure out what you're going to wear. So you spend the majority of your day in the mall. Like, we didn't do brunch and stuff like that back then. We would be up in the mall trying to find something to wear to these people's club, right? Go find something where, or not, maybe just hanging with your friends and they need to buy something, but you in there. And while you're there, you're probably gonna go, or at least for my group, we went to the food court and got us something to eat. Hopefully, ran into some cuties while we were in there. Exchanged some numbers. Who knows? And then we went home. Maybe we rested, watched some Lifetime movies, and rested a little bit before we had to get there by 10, right? Because we need to get in for free, ladies, right? We need to get there by certain times. We can get in for free or what have you. So we do that. We get to the club, and then once you get there, then there's a whole nother ritual. Like, if somebody gonna ask you to dance, they're gonna ask for your phone number, they're gonna buy you a drink. Like, what's the thing, right? One of those things needs to happen for you to feel like you are triumphant, right, in your club uh, endeavor, right? And so that's how it went, right? And so you might have met somebody, you might have, gave out a number, but if, let's say, you did not meet anybody, or nobody bought your drink, or nobody like really asked you to dance, like, that was a terrible night. You mean to tell me I spent my whole day getting ready for this? Ain't nobody like my outfit, ain't nobody try to dance with me, ain't nobody ask me, right? And so that would be the ritual. That is what we would do, right, almost every weekend. And then it got to a point where I didn't want to spend all day in the mall just to go to the club. I'll go to the club, I'm still going, but I want to spend all day. And then it got to a point where when I did get to the club, I didn't really enjoy it, right? I didn't enjoy it, not just because someone didn't ask for my number or try to ask me out, but it was just felt like people just standing around dancing and you're waiting to get chosen. And I didn't like that. And then at some point, I didn't want to even go to the club, right? I didn't want to be out like that. I wanted to do other things. I wanted to do other things that were creative, or other things that made more sense to me at that time. Or I just want to stay home with my socks on, eating popcorn, watching TV, right? And here's the thing, there wasn't like a definitive demarcation, right? It wasn't a date that I said, I'm no longer going out to clubs. But there was just a subtle transition, right? There were just things that begin to tell me that, oh, this phase of our life is done and we're moving on to the next phase. And just subtly, incrementally, those things changed, right? And so now I don't go to the club. I might go to a lounge or something like that, and just, because I still love to dance. I still love to live music. I still dance to some of the music that I used to dance to. Like those things haven't changed, but to be in that environment, like that was not something that was fulfilling to me anymore, right? And other things became more fulfilling. And so, as I think about our transitions, the same thing in this midlife transition, there are things that may be happening in your life that you might not even notice are beginning to shift, but there may be some discomfort that you're feeling, or some um, or a lack of attraction to that thing, right? Or to be around a group of people, or it could be in your career, it could be all kinds of things, but you are feeling much differently than you felt before. And I think it's a little bit more difficult to recognize that once we kind of get into our 40s or even beyond, or even our late 30s and beyond. It's a little bit more difficult to make the shift because a lot of things that we're doing are not about the club, but they're based on these goals that we've set for ourselves. They're based on what society has told us we should be doing at this stage in our life. And a lot of it really isn't about you, like who you actually are. And so as we go into this first phase of the great big life cycle, the transition, it essentially is about becoming aware that you're in a transition. Here's the key point to remember. When you are in a rut, that lets you know that it is time to reroute. And first, we have to recognize we're in a rut. We have to recognize that this is stagnant. We have to recognize that this forward movement that we once had at one point, and it was good and it worked and we were doing our thing, like we're done with that. And often we're done with things sooner than we realize, right? There are mindsets that we have that no longer work, that will no longer work for the person that we are becoming. And it's so difficult to recognize that, because then if I don't have that mindset, if I don't participate in those habits or those activities, then who am I? Who am I if I don't do those things? And that's what this transition is about. It's becoming the next version of yourself. Not to say that this version of yourself is terrible, bad, or horrible. It got you to where you are, and you might be in a place that is amazing and it is wonderful, and you have all of the things and all the accoutrement of doing the things, of getting the degree, of getting married, of having the kids, the house, and the picket fence, or whatever, right? But it is no longer satisfying to you in the way that it was, because you've reached that goal. You've done what you needed to do to get there. Now there's another there for you to get to. We're going to focus here on the transition. Where are you now? Becoming aware of the different areas of your life that might be transitioning. So let's talk about some of those areas. I like to talk about 8 different areas. I'm not going to do that today. We'll talk another day about our great big life wheel that really covers all of those areas. But there are a few areas that I'm learning that people are realizing, like, oh, I'm in a transition, right? And they may not necessarily know it. The first one is career. We have a lot of women. I know a lot of women who are in this phase of life, late 30s, early 40s, late 40s, 50s, and the hustler mentality that you might have had, the go-getter mentality that you might have had, the super ambitious, overachieving, overperforming version of yourself no longer fits in this place where you are in life, right? I'm working with a client right now who is late 30ish, right? And is feeling that discomfort of, I don't really want to do all that stuff I used to do, right? Like, trying to get promoted, trying to be, being competitive and all of those things. Like, I just want to do the things I like. Like, this is what I really like to do. I don't want to be the Jacqueline of all trades, right? I don't want to do that. I just want to focus on the things that I enjoy, right? And so that's a transition, right? That's a transition from doing all the things, getting all the promotions, and having all the accolades and achievement. So what's happening, I believe, is that that need for external validation is beginning to diminish, and the desire for internal validation is beginning to increase, right? And so it's less about what people think I should do for work or how I should do it, but it's more about what is it that I want to do? What is it that I enjoy? What fills me up? And I mean, you go quit your job. I mean, you can, but I don't know. I mean, if you can do it, you got it. Go do it, girl. But if you can't, then what does that mean? Like, how do we still fulfill that need? Because we are full, total, whole human beings, right? That need to be fulfilled, right, to do the work we've been called to do and to live the lives we've been called to live. And I don't know what yours is. Like, I'm not a person that says, everybody should be a billionaire, everybody should work for themselves, everybody should blah blah blah. What is your thing, right? And so hopefully in this process you'll begin to get more clarity on what that is. You get to define that. And that's what I love about midlife, is that I've learned that I get to define things for myself. I don't have to have society or somebody else defining it for me. I get to decide what that looks like. And so again, so in your career, you might be, in a phase place of, I don't like this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore for whatever reason. It might be too stressful. I have a lot of friends, colleagues that are in jobs entirely too stressful. They're overwhelmed. I don't even love it anymore because of the stress. Like, I'm done with this, right? So that could be one area of your life that you're feeling, that you might be feeling that shift happening, that midlife shift. Another shift, it can happen in your personal relationships, a lot in your friendships, right? Some of us have been friends with folks for many years. I've known my best friend for 30 years. I have my cousin who's a good friend of mine for, I don't know, 40 years at a certain point, but even those relationships have shifts and changes, right? And in those shifts, it doesn't mean that you end those relationships. Sometimes it does. Let's be realistic. Sometimes it does, right? Because there may be things that you needed or they needed that has now been fulfilled, and you don't need that anymore, and that relationship is no longer viable. I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm just saying that for you, but I'm saying that it certainly happens, right? When some of these friendships, relationships are no longer viable. Maybe your children are getting older. How you parented when they were, 4, 5, 6, 7 is not going to work when they 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? What's happening there? What's the awareness in your romantic relationship, in your marriage, if you're dating? What mindset shifts need to change, right, for you? I know for me, like in terms of dating, when I was younger, I was dating like, oh my gosh, I want to get married by this age so I can have children, blah blah blah, and that did not happen. I did not get married by children. I did not get married by 25. I did not have children by 25. I have not been married and I still don't have children, right? So then the question becomes, right, what does a relationship look like for me at this phase in my life? Because it's different. It's just different, right? So how do I manage that, right? What does that look like now? All right. So another area, and a huge area for women in midlife, are those physical shifts and changes. When that body starts doing something totally different, you can't be sitting home eating Cheetos all weekend, baby, and popcorn and chicken wings and cheeseburgers and think you're not gonna gain no weight. Now, some of y'all might. Some of y'all are blessed with some great genes. I'm not one of those people. Okay, I'm not one of them. I'm not her. But when your body starts to change and you don't have any control over it, that is mind boggling. And it's a little bit scary, to be honest with you. And so, managing that transition and trying to find that stabilization, we're going to talk about that menopause. I'm definitely going to share my own journey. But, talk about that, how that is very destabilizing, and that no matter what you do or no matter how you try, like, you can't lose the weight, or your blood pressure won't go down, or your insulin levels will keep rising. Like, what is going on? I'm trying my best. I'm doing my best. And just that really has a huge impact on your honestly, your emotions and sometimes your mental health, right? But that's a transition to be aware of, right? Often people are going through it and they don't even realize they're probably in menopause or perimenopause. They don't even realize that these are hormonal changes. They just think, oh, something is wrong with me, or I don't know what's going on. It's like, no, like, your body is doing something that you don't have control over, right? But you can learn about it and try to get the help that you need. But that's another major transition that women in midlife go through. So let's talk about the midlife audit. So the midlife audit is just an exercise of awareness. It helps you really sit and think about different areas of your life and how you're feeling about them right now. We don't really take a lot of time to do that, right? Because we have so much going on. We have work and kids and school and dinner and blah, 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 that we don't take enough time to really just sit and think, like, what's going on here? Because when you do this audit, it helps you see, like, where the shift is happening, right? A lot of our goals have been aligned to a different version of ourselves. And so this really lets us sit with where we are in this moment and what we're doing now in this moment, right? And if it is aligned with where we're going, right? Not with who we were, but who we're becoming. As I'm talking about this audit, I'd advise you to get out your journal, if you want to get out a sheet of paper and just kind of write out these different, areas or these different questions. I advise you to do that. All right, so there are 8 areas that I like to use, and we're not going to do all 8 today, but you can jot them down yourself to do a midlife audit, okay? There are spiritual, financial, health, emotional, intellectual, career, relationships, and your home, your living environment, right? We're just going to focus on 2 or 3 right now, and we're just going to focus on career, relationships, and your physical. So if you're doing a midlife audit in terms of your career, so the first question you might ask yourself is, am I satisfied with my work or am I feeling restless? There's no right or wrong answer. It's no good or bad. Just, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Can you really answer? Yes, I'm satisfied. No, I'm not. Are you feeling ambivalent about it? Right? If you're feeling ambivalent about it, it'd be good to just kind of journal those feelings. Has your work been fulfilling, or are you craving something different at this stage in your life? Again, no right or wrong. All of it's okay. In terms of your relationships, are your relationships evolving as you evolve, or are they staying the same? Right? And are you happy with where they are? Again, no right or wrong answer, right? Have your friendships changed? Do you feel more distant? Do you feel closer? Again, are you able to manage the evolution of each other, right? And your friendships and your relationships? Right? Again, just a question. And then lastly, as we talk about health and our well-being, how are you feeling physically? If you looked at yourself a year ago, 2, 3 years ago, do you feel differently than you do now? What does that feel like? Are you prioritizing your self-care during this time? Or are you neglecting it because you just have too much going on? What is that? Are you feeling symptoms of maybe menopause or perimenopause, things you've never felt before? Right? What's going on there? So again, we're just pausing, asking ourselves questions. We're not doing anything. We're just becoming aware. We're gaining awareness. All right. So as you go through these, and again, you can do all 8 of those areas if you like, or just stick to those 3. But I want you to just sit with those, right? Go through that exercise and again, become aware as you do this midlife audit. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen to me today. Our next video, we're going to talk about the midlife edit. We've just audited. Now we got to edit. And do me a quick favor, like this video and then share it with someone that you think will really benefit from it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to catch you on the other side. I'll see you next time.